Hey, good morning. Welcome everyone to our session today on CEE Research Showcase for IESO project and Opus One. So today our agenda will include the showcase on the Transactive Energy project of IESO. We will briefly cover the 4 TETS modules, including the first, Operation Energy Market for day ahead and for real time. Secondly, the planning module for the TETS through a capacity market. We will also cover the optimal operation and the planning modules for DERs. And we will conclude this project with a brief description of our Tetsa Lab. In addition to the Opus One project. So let's start. So before we going into details of our Tetsa platform, Transactive Energy Distribution System platform, it may be very important to briefly look at the current status of the operation of our system and explain our motivation for considering the Transactive Energy System. So as we can see in this slide, we have the typical power system consists of 3 main sections: the transmission, generation, and distribution. So on the bulk transmission level, the IESO, the independent system operator, runs the wholesale market and the capacity market. On the distribution level, there is no energy or capacity market, and the LDCs on the distribution level run the distribution system through several tools, including the Advanced Distribution Management System, the Outage Management System, it's a SCADA system, and so on. So in Ontario, more than 4 gigawatts of DERs have been contracted and installed in the last 10 years. However, only large DER can participate into the wholesale market. And the small DERs on the distribution level has no commercial opportunity to participate into the wholesale market. In addition to that, and from the planning point of view, the asset upgrading and the infrastructure upgrading, the wired solution is the only option for supplying the new loads. So there is a big need to make sure that these available local resources on the distribution level are acting in a proactive way and can participate into the market and be able to make profit. And because of that, we are evolving to the new paradigm of transactive energy system. So as we can see in this slide, our transactive energy distribution system can fit over the existing distribution system. We come up with a new entity, which we call it the local distribution operator. This local distribution operator will manage the proposed transactive energy distribution system market, and the LDCs will stay doing the same function and activities for the network of the distribution system. Our developed transactive energy distribution system includes several modules, including the energy market on the distribution level, a capacity market for planning for the distribution level, and also planning and operation tools for the participant, the DERs, owners. And in order to capture what is the transactive energy distribution system, it will be very useful to learn what are the main players and transaction in this platform. So let's start with the most important entity here, the local distribution operator, the operator of the transactive energy system, which is conceived as an independent entity that overlays on the LDCs, overseeing the economic aspects of the transactive energy distribution system. We also have interaction with the wholesale market, so it's very important to consider the IESO into the transactive energy platform. Also, we do have the owners of the DER, which we have them in two forms. One of them could be aggregator or prosumer. And actually, both of them are virtual entity which aggregate several DERs behind either single meter, which will be a prosumer, or multimeter, which will be the aggregator. And we can see that there are three main types for the major transaction, which we have here in the Transactive Energy Distribution Platform, including the peer-to-peer transaction, which could happen between any two peers in the system, between any prosumers and aggregators, between any two aggregators or any two prosumers. In addition to that, we have the second type of transaction, which could be between any peer and the LDO itself, between the market on the distribution level. And finally, we have the interaction between the transactive market on the distribution level and the wholesale market, which we define it as IESO to LDO transaction. So we can briefly describe our comprehensive transactive energy distribution platform to be consist of 4 major modules. So the two of them are developed considering the LDO, the operator, from the operator perspective. So they will be the transactive energy market, which could handle the real-time market and the day-ahead market also. On the other hand, for the planning of the transactive energy distribution system, we have a capacity market mechanism which will handle the planning for the new loads. On the other hand, and from the perspective of the market participant, which will be the owners of the DER in form of aggregators and prosumer, we do have 2 other modules for operation and the planning of these DER's assets. And these modules are optimally plan and operate the aggregated DERs for prosumer and aggregator to make sure that it will have a viable business model and they can make profit out of their investment. So let's now go in details for each one of these modules. Let's start with the energy market. So this slide shows that the first major module of the transactive energy distribution system is the energy market, which is a double-ended market that maximizes the social welfare for the whole distribution system. This energy market module is fully cognizant of 3 major types of transaction, which we just mentioned. The IESO to LDO transaction, the peer-to-peer transaction, and the peer-to-LDO transaction. And actually, this transactive energy market module consider the 3-phase representation of the distribution system. It settles both regular transaction and the ancillary service in a single market settlement. And it has a pricing mechanism based on the distribution locational marginal price. So one of the obtained results of this energy market settlement will be the DLMPs at each node of the distribution system. And for sure, this energy market will providing the opportunity for the privately owned assets and DERs to participate into the energy market on the distribution level on a competitive basis. Moving to the other module, the second major module which we have is the capacity market. So this slide showing the planning concept for the transactive energy distribution system through a market-based mechanism that's consider offer bids of power capacity procurement and asset upgrading and also reliability transaction and demand bids to serve the new loads. It provides the opportunity to the privately owned assets to participate into the market on a competitive basis. So this planning process is fully cognizant of all the transaction which could happen in the future on the operational market, in the energy market. So including the peer-to-peer, the peer-to-LDO, and the peer-to-IESO. This capacity market enabling the privately owned DER for asset upgrading to be a part of the planning for the distribution system. It also enhancing the system reliability and consider that those critical loads and the critical customers which may need supply from several supply nodes in the system. So the reliability transaction is a major part of this capacity market. And finally, we do have the two modules which consider the perspective of the two main participants of the transactive energy markets, which are the aggregators and the prosumers. So there are the planning module, which is developed to plan for the sizing and siting of the aggregators and the prosumer, such that maximizing the overall profit of the aggregated assets and DERs. The second module is an operational tool that is developed to manage the operational decision of the aggregators and the prosumer, including the bidding mechanism that the aggregator and the prosumer will offer for the transactive energy market. Also, this operational tool considers the revenue distribution between the DERs and the transaction with the transactive energy system. So these tools are very helpful for the aggregators and the prosumer to make sure that their investments are viable and profitable. So in addition to our platform, and in order to have a showcase for this comprehensive transactive energy distribution system, in 2019, the Center for Urban Energy opened its Transactive Energy Distribution System Lab, where we applying this module to energy would enable a new level of control for consumer to best manage their energy use and transform the economic viability of DER, paving the way for green energy system. So our Tetsa Lab is a world first and was designed completely by our CEE research team to test, model, and analyze transactive energy distribution system. Our Tetsa platform incorporates distribution energy resources, DERs, such as wind, PV, EV, batteries, and enable the buying and selling of electricity from and to anyone at any time within the system. And in order to give a brief description about the concept of this lab, we have this slide that illustrates the procedure and the process of the transactive energy distribution system platform. Actually, we have the actual distribution system in the lower level, in the CUI building, in the Center for Urban Innovation building, where we have all the DER connected to the Schneider Smart Grid Lab in the lower level. And these assets can remotely bid to the platform, which we set up on the machines in the new Tetsa Lab, which we have it in the first floor of the CUI building. The TETS will start to collect these bids from the different assets, start to run the market settlement and will obtain the dispatching schedule for all the DERs included in this transactive energy distribution system, and will also obtain the DLMP, the distribution locational marginal price at each node of the system, and will also send the signal to the DER to activate or deactivate according to the result of the market settlement. And actually, we are making this communication between the low-level assets and the physical network and the Tetsa platform lab using the SCADA network control, which we have it in the Schneider Smart Grid lab. And just for giving some idea about what we have there, in this picture, we can see the Tetsa lab with two main screens. On the left-hand side, we have the SCADA system of the physical distribution network. On the right-hand side, there is a screen of the Tetsa platform, which mainly focus on the economic aspect and obtaining the schedule and the DLMPs after the market settlement. So after collecting the bids from all the assets which we have downstairs connected to the physical system, the market, the transactive energy platform will run to settle the market and will give the decision for the schedule of these DERs and also what will be the DLMPs at each node of the system. In addition to sending the decision to each DER participate into that distribution system. Here we can see the Schneider Smart Grid Lab. So in this Smart Grid Lab, we have all the DER connected to the physical network and communicate with the upper Tetsa lab through the SCADA system. So these DERs connected to the physical network distribution Smart Grid Lab, which we have downstairs, will be able to remotely bid to the transactive energy distribution system and will also be able to receive the decision from after the transactive energy settlement through the SCADA system and from this spreadsheet which generated as an outcome of the Tetsa market settlement. In addition to that, we are right now starting a new project for which we call it Opus One Project. So it's a collaboration between the Center for Urban Energy and Tata Power, the Indian organization, and Opus One, a Canadian organization here, or Canadian company, which developing energy solution for the energy distribution system. So the major objective of this project is forecasting the growth of electric vehicles and photovoltaic in terms of low, medium, and high growth rate from 2021 to 2030 in Delhi, the Indian state. The study aims to determine the proportional relationship between the population and the electric vehicle chargers. Our study will consider the following aspects. We'll consider the details of elements that contribute to the growth of the EV and BV in Delhi, and will also consider the current statistics and the factors influencing them. It will also estimating the number of the electric vehicle charges based on the forecasted number of the EVs. And this forecasting will be on a macro level and considering the political influences that may influence the growth rate of the EV and BV in Delhi state. Thanks so much. we are more than happy to receive your question.
Great, thank you, Dr. Amr. So those who are wanting to ask questions on these two projects, I would request you to please go to the Q&A on the sessions tab. There is a sessions tab on the right-hand side, and there is chat and Q&A. Please go to the Q&A and ask your questions for the sessions tab, and we can answer your questions live. While we wait for everybody to ask questions, I thought I will ask you one of those questions, Dr. Amr, if that's okay.
My pleasure, sir.
Okay, awesome. So, in this transactive energy system that you have created along with Dr. Carlos for the last several years, in collaboration with the IESO, what's the primary motive, or what would be the biggest benefit to ratepayers, and who are the stakeholders who benefit from it?
Well, actually, this transactive energy distribution system can achieve benefits for each stakeholders in the market. So let's start with the utilities. So the utilities and the IESO are spending a lot of money in planning for the distribution system, especially when it comes to considering the only option which we have right now for planning for the new loads, which are just the infrastructure upgrading, the wired solution, which cost a lot of money. So instead of that, when we have local resources available for supplying the loads on the distribution level, actually we can reduce this planning budget to a very limited planning budget, and making full use of the available local resources, DERs, connected to the distribution system. And this for sure will have some good influences on the impacts on the operation of the distribution system, solving a lot of congestion problems. Also, it will have a positive effect on the energy price for the end user customers, because by the end of the day, all of this planning budget and all of these planning costs will be part of the bills which the end user customers will pay. So if we avoid a part of this infrastructure upgrading and we're making use of these DERs and make them viable and profitable, this will allow the energy price for the end user to reduce. This will enhance the reliability of the system. This also, from the perspective of the end user customers, it will enable their choice for selecting between green or brown energy. So once we have these renewable DERs, we enable the choice for these customers, for these end user customers, to select which generation scheme they need and they like. On the other hand, actually, this transactive energy system enabling the privately owned assets owner to take a proactive part into the system. So instead of having everything publicly owned by the utilities, and we can have it right now, assets and DERs privately owned by new entity, and they can have a viable business model. They can make revenue out of their participating into the market. Actually, this opportunity itself is not existing right now, and in order to have it, we need a market on the distribution system. So actually, the main contribution for the the investors and the owners of the DR that we are providing them with this opportunity to participate in a proactive way, to be able to make profit and revenue out of this, out of their participation. I hope I answer.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Amr. So there is a question from one of the participants here. David, thank you for your question. So his question would be, how would efficiency fit into transactive energy framework given the recent auction of energy efficiency? So if there is something that you can speak about efficiency and how it can fit into transactive energy framework, that will be very helpful.
Well, so in terms of the energy efficiency, actually having these renewable resources can improve the energy efficiency for the whole system. This can enable the building, the owners of the houses, to have these small DERs. And in terms of energy efficiency, just let's imagine that we do have a local resources available in the distribution system, and we don't need to transmit on the transmission side anymore. We are going to save a lot of losses, which we always have in this transmission, in this long transmission between the center of the generation. We usually have it very far from the distribution, the center of the distribution loads, and instead of that, we will have a local resources very close to the load. So the energy efficiency of the transmitting this energy on the distribution itself within the distribution system will make this transmission very efficient, rather than, and this could be very very clear when it comes to the remote community, when we have to transmit over thousands of kilometers in order to deliver energy for this remote community. So instead of that, having local supplies for this remote community and having the transactive energy system run this kind of small LDCs or small distribution system would be very helpful in improving the efficiency and saving a lot of asset upgrading and infrastructure upgrading for these systems. So in my point of view, I would say from the efficiency point of view, it will be very helpful.
That's great. That's great. So in addition to it, there is one thing that the IESO or the system operator procures as energy resources. In the system that you have devised along with Dr. Carlos, the procurement process is any different than what is available right now, the centralized procurement process? Is the procurement itself very different from what one could see before? I'm not sure if my audio is clear enough for you to hear.
I'm sorry, the sound looks a little bit not clear. I would appreciate if you can just repeat it one more time.
For sure. So my question was around procurement. In the procurement that David mentioned, it is a procurement by the ISOs. So in the model that you have proposed, who's procuring all these services? Is there a difference in the agency procuring these services?
Yeah, for sure. So in the developed model, we have a new entity which we call it the LDO, the local distribution operator. And actually, this new entity is taking care of procuring the energy from both from the local resources on the distribution level and also from the transmission, because still the distribution system will need to be connected and interacting with the wholesale transmission, with the bulk transmission. So this procurement, when it comes to a competitive, would be on a competitive base. When the LDO will settle the market, he's taking into consideration the transaction from both sides, and whenever it makes sense, the procurement will happen. So if we have enough local resources at a good price, so these local resources should get more priority for the settlement, and they for sure they can achieve the high efficiency, lower energy prices. So many benefits will happen out of these settlements. So having this procurement happen on the distribution level and happening by the LDO actually will help the IESO to stop forecasting about the distribution system, because someone else, the LDO, this new entity, taking care of this part, taking care of the energy adequacy of the distribution system, and managing all the economic aspect on the distribution level.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Amr. I don't have any other questions. There are no more questions also on the chat. So I thank you, everybody, for attending this session. And I also thank Dr. Amr for making this wonderful presentation. Sorry, there is one more question. Maybe since we have time, I thought I can take it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. The question here from David, another David, is how do you integrate this technology into existing infrastructure that did not consider energy efficiency in their design?
Well, that's a very good question, because we mentioned in one of the slides that this transactive energy platform will overlay the existing system. So we will still dealing with the system and the infrastructure which we have right now, but actually we will have a new entity which, instead of just considering the technical issues and the technical aspect on the distribution level, we will have a new entity which taking care of the economic aspect on the distribution level. So right now we don't have any market on the distribution level. Only this large DER can participate into the wholesale market, and the whole LDC in a certain region or jurisdiction will just have to bid to the IESO, to the wholesale market, in order to get the required energy for supplying its load. So instead of that, we will have this new entity come to the play, organize develop a new market, collecting bids from available local resources, communicating with the wholesale market. So taking care of this distribution system, but only from the technical aspects, from the economic aspects, while the LDC will still doing the same activities, doing the same functions, considering the maintenance, the operation of the distribution system. So it will be a kind of new technology which will just overlay the existing system. We don't need to remove the existing system. It will stay as it is. We just add one more layer of economic layer, which consider the market on the distribution. I hope this answered your question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Great. So once more, I don't see any other questions on the chat or the Q&A portal here. So thank you very much, Dr. Amr, for this great presentation. And thank you, everybody, for attending. I see on the chat some people have posted messages. Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody here. And then wonderful to see you in this session. Until the next time, thanks and bye-bye.
Thanks.